Sometimes you don't get a chance to finish a project, and it could be for a number of reasons. And this is one of those projects. Some of you have been asking about it but never got a chance to see the final part. So in this video, I'll tell you what happened to it, but I'm also going to answer some of the other questions viewers have been asking me this past season. Some were pretty good questions, while others, not so much. In today's video, we're going to be looking at this Honda-powered Troy-built lawnmower. And the problem is that after going through the carb, sometimes it'll start with one pull, but other times it takes 7, which is not normal. So what's normal then? Well, it's going to be different for other engines. All I know is that it shouldn't be that much of a difference. The only thing I'm looking for is predictability, meaning it should start with a couple of pulls each and every time. So here's the question I kept receiving about this project. How did you fix the problem? And I've tried searching for it, but could never find the final video. So it turns out the carb was the problem the entire time, and in this part of the video, we ended up doing a compression test along with a valve adjustment. The reason why I didn't make the last portion was because the video file ended up being corrupt and I wasn't able to retrieve it. You'd think I'd be able to redo that part of the video, but by the time I got around to doing it and realized what had happened, this mower was long gone. Also, we're not talking about a 10-minute video clip. This was almost an hour long, so I wasn't able to redo it. And with so much of the video missing, that's the reason why I wasn't able to make a full repair video. That means what you're seeing now are the repairs leading up to that final part. So the question does come up, how often do I get a corrupt video file? The answer is not very often. In fact, this will be the second time it's happened in all these years. But to keep that from happening again, from now on, I make backups of all the files I transfer, so this should help out tremendously. So what other interesting questions have I received then? Well, most are specific to the videos they show up in, while others are a bit more personal. One of the common questions I get asked, especially during the mowing season, has to do with keeping the underside of the mowing deck clean. If you didn't know, keeping the underside of the mowing deck clean is general maintenance, so most consumers see it as a pain to do and simply don't do it. And depending upon how thick the metal is on your mowing deck, it could be years before it turns into Swiss cheese. And because of that, I'd always recommend cleaning it at least once a year, if not twice. But some have recommended spraying all sorts of chemicals on the mowing deck to keep the buildup to a minimum. So here's my opinion if you're willing to hear me out. I'd rather just clean the deck on a regular schedule or when needed versus treating the mowing deck. The reason why is that I find the sprays and coatings work for a while, but they don't last forever, which means you'll have to keep coating it. So instead of cleaning the mowing deck once a year, you're now cleaning and treating it with your spray of choice. So yes, they do work, but I don't think it's a permanent fix for the problem. But you are certainly welcome to do whatever you want with your mower, but as for me, I'll just keep cleaning it once or twice a year. The next question is a tough one even for me, and I hope you never find yourself in this kind of situation. So the viewer states, my blower is almost brand new and it starts and runs great, but after shutting it off, it simply won't start again. The viewer mentioned they even tried using starter fluid to see if it was a fuel problem, but it still didn't do anything. So from the information that I'm getting, I believe the engine is flooded with extra fuel. This problem is extremely frustrating because there could be multiple issues causing it, from a carb issue or even the user. What I would do would be to use the blower for a while, then turn it off, only to try and start it again 2 minutes later. But this time, I would change the way they were trying to start it, and in this case, I would change the throttle position. I would try full throttle at first, and then if that didn't work, I would then try part throttle. I would also check and make sure they were following the procedures recommended in the owner's manual. Of course, there could always be a problem with the machine, but once we've tried changing a few other items with no success, would I then look at the machine. The next comment had to do with the touchy subject of the spark arrestor screen, which comes up quite a bit. So if you didn't know, the spark arrestor has a very important job of reducing the risk of a grass fire, which would also include a forest fire too. And although the likelihood of that ever happening is extremely low, someone thought it was very important to mandate it. The viewer's comment was a bit confusing, but the gist of it is that cleaning the spark arrestor screen is only part of the problem, and finding the root cause is the main problem to fix. So I couldn't agree more with the viewer's comment, but the root cause for a clogged screen would basically deal with the user, which is a bit tougher to fix. For me, the two main causes for a clogged screen is too much two-stroke oil in the fuel mix and not getting the engine hot enough while in use. And yes, getting rid of the screen altogether would fix the problem, but that's for each of you to decide on. So if your screen or your customer's screens keep getting clogged, then hopefully you can change the way your customers are using their equipment. The next question is even tougher to answer because it goes beyond what I can do in the comments alone. The viewer was having a problem adjusting their brand new carb on their Ryobi backpack blower. One of the toughest skills to learn will be how to tune a carb, but my biggest concern is making sure there's nothing else that will affect the tune. This person said that no matter what kind of adjustments they made, it was still bogging down and shutting off. So if I was there with them, I would ask them what all was done to the machine as far as repairs go. And depending on those answers I get, I would then look at everything they did and even the stuff they didn't do. I know that sounds a bit confusing, but I can't be certain that the repairs that were made were done correctly. So to answer their question, I would check and make sure that the gasket between the carb and the engine was in the correct orientation. I would then check on the fuel lines and finally the spark arrestor screen along with the exhaust port for carbon buildup. I know everyone wants a simple solution to a problem, but sometimes it goes much further than just replacing one part. The next question is something that might affect you in this upcoming season, and it's about the future of lawn care. Is it worth buying new batteries for your electric mower? So this viewer was asking about replacing their worn out batteries and its cost effectiveness. And I hate to be the one telling you this, but I believe they'd rather you just buy a brand new mower instead of replacing those batteries. If you look at the prices for new OEM batteries, you'll realize very quickly that they're extremely expensive in comparison to buying a brand new mower. This is of course different for each brand, and it really depends on how much a new mower costs. Basically, a good sized battery will be between $150 to $300, which is extremely high in my book. The reason I'm concerned about this topic is because I'm actually in this situation myself. So I was able to get a DeWalt battery electric mower this last season for free, but the problem is that the batteries only last 15 to 30 minutes depending upon if I use the self-propel. The solution to my situation would be to just buy new batteries, but at almost $300 for the pair, it's simply not worth it to me. So why not just buy those cheap knockoff batteries? The answer is simple. Most cases you're getting an inferior product that won't do what it says. And if that product had been made here and not abroad, they wouldn't be in business right now. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind paying for less just so long as I'm aware that I'm getting a lot less for my money. So I'll leave it up to you. You can buy new replacement batteries for your mower if you want to. But as for me, I'm not going to do that. However, I do plan on rebuilding my batteries with new cells, which should make for an interesting video. The next question was from a viewer who said that after replacing the carb on their Honda-powered lawnmower, it was still surging. So if your engine is still surging, even with a brand new carb, it could mean there's reduced fuel flow and it has nothing to do with your carb. It could be one of three things. First, there's an air leak between the carb and the engine. Second, there could be a restriction in the fuel line either in the filter or inside the fuel line itself. And finally, the vent holes on the edge of the fuel cap could be clogged and restricting airflow into the fuel tank. So the fuel cap is the easiest to test and fix. What I would do is to leave the fuel cap loose while you do a test run. And to fix it, you just have to clean the holes in the cap using compressed air. The fuel line and filter might be the next easiest thing to test. To do that, I would shut off the fuel at the valve, disconnect the fuel line from the carb or the back of the valve, and then open the valve to release the fuel. The flow of fuel from the line should be steady, but if it's just a trickle, then you'll need to clean the filter or replace the fuel line. The air leak between the carb and the engine will be tougher because you'll need to take the carb off and inspect the condition of the gaskets and insulator. And if for some reason it's still surging, then yes, I think you got a defective carb. And instead of cleaning it, I would just send it back and get a refund while ordering a brand new carb from a different vendor. The next question was from a longtime viewer, and their question was how I distinguished a commercial trimmer from a residential one. This answer will be subjective, but then again, all my answers are. I base my decision on the overall design from the gearbox all the way to the recoil assembly. If the gearbox is easily serviceable, that's a step in the right direction. Also, if the shaft is made out of aluminum, that's another telltale. It also needs a good air filter. It can't just be a piece of foam. The last would be a stout recoil on the backside of the engine, which should make it easier to service or replace. Time is money, and breaking a pull rope should be repairable on site, but that's my take on it. I do want to remind you that I am not a service technician and just a hobbyist, so if you want to argue with me on any of these points, I'm completely open for it. And to be honest, there are those out there that have done this kind of work a lot longer than me and are probably better qualified to answer these questions. And I'm very certain that if you ask them the same questions, you'll get a much better answer and with some better reasons to back them up as well. So don't be afraid to ask as many questions as you need to, but don't be surprised if the answers don't make any sense either. Because if they did make sense, then you wouldn't be asking the question in the first place. And if you ever get to the point where you're out of ideas, don't be afraid to ask. All it proves is that you're willing to learn from someone else's mistakes. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this project or about your own projects, and I hope to see you in the next video.